Knives. They've been around for thousands of years. From the simple stone tools carried by our ancestors to the precision instruments of today, knives have come a long way. But when it comes to pocket knives, the story really starts to get interesting in the last few centuries.
That's right. The slip joint, which was invented in the 17th century, is what made pocket knives common for everybody. But it wasn't until the 20th century that we started to see the evolution of the folding knife into what we know and love today. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into, the last 50 years of pocket knives.
We'll talk about the best pocket knives of the last few decades, from the 60s all the way to today. We'll talk about the designs, materials, and technologies that have changed the way we carry pocket knives.
Knives have been around in human history for thousands of years. In fact, we classify the ages of history based on what humans used to make knives out of, such as stone, bronze, and iron. Throughout time, humans made rudimentary pocket knives, but it wasn't until the 1600s when we saw the evolution of the knife into what we know as the slip joint.
Fast forward to the 20th century, and knives like the Swiss Army knife and the Buck 110 have become extremely popular, implementing things like additional tools and even a sturdy lockback that can handle some hard work. By the 1990s, companies like Cold Steel, Spyderco, and Benchmade had revolutionized the knife industry, and that is when the modern era of pocket knives really took off.
Let's start with the 90s, a decade of innovation. One of the most important knives of this time was the Spyderco Endura, which was released in 1991. It featured the same strong lockback as the Buck 110, but it was easier to open and close with one hand. With its lightweight build, ergonomic handle, and revolutionary pocket clip, the Endura became one of the most iconic knives of its era.
And it helped establish Spyderco's reputation as a manufacturer of high-performance knives, and served as a launchpad for decades of constant quality improvement. To this day, the Endura is a popular EDC and tactical knife for people worldwide.
Speaking of tactical knives, you can't forget about Microtech. Simply known as the Kid from most senior knife makers, a young Tony Marfione pioneered the automatic knife world, bringing the Microtech Ultratech to the market, being one of the first truly dependable OTFs.
Meanwhile, Cold Steel was making a name for itself with rugged knives like the Voyager. This thing was built to last. With a triad lock mechanism and a tough, no-nonsense construction, it immediately became popular with tactical knife users and collectors worldwide.
Next came Benchmade's Axis Lock, which was seen on the 710, an instant hit, especially for left-handed users because it was fully ambidextrous.
All these knives are still alive and well, but in the next decade, a new generation of knife innovators came along, stood on the shoulders of these giants, and made the knife world a whole lot bigger.
As the 2000s rolled in, knife innovation kept going strong, from the big names to some newer faces. In 2001, Spyderco released the Paramilitary, which featured the brand new compression lock. At first glance, this looked a lot like the liner lock, except it was on top of the knife. But under the hood, there's a lot more going on, which makes it stronger and safer to operate.
Around this same time, Karsten Felix, the co-owner of Boker, took a daring trip deep into Russia to meet a man who needs no introduction for all you gun enthusiasts, Mikhail Kalashnikov. There, he struck a deal with the legendary inventor to collaborate on a knife design that we know now as the Boker Kalashnikov, the best-selling knife in Blade HQ history.
One of my favorites from this era has to be the Kershaw Leak. Invented in 2004 by Ken Onion, it featured the speed-safe assisted opening, which made it super fast and smooth to open with one hand. Its slim, lightweight design made it an easy pick for everyday carry. Spring-assisted openers have become a staple in the industry due to providing a safe and easy way to open without it being an automatic.
The 2000s also marked a turning point for blade steels, as powder steels became the default for high-end knives. Instead of being melted and poured like conventional blade steels, powder steels begin life as a fine powder that under high heat and pressure is sintered into a uniform steel block. This offers performance that your ancestors would have given their lives for.
In 2004, Crucible teamed up with Chris Reeve, Sal Glesser from Spyderco, Tony Marfione from Microtech, Paul Boss from Buck, and other top knife makers to make S30V, the first powder steel made specifically for knives. Since then, S30V and its other successors have set the knife standard for what a premium knife steel should be.
As we enter the 2010s, we see the knife world become even more worldwide. Brands from Asia, Europe, Latin America, and other regions, many of which had already existed for decades, became part of the international knife community. This led to innovations that gave more value to knife shoppers than ever before.
Take the Civivi Elementum. Civivi was a new subsidiary of We Knife Co., and the Elementum brought a slick as butter action, slim and slicey D2 blade, and a price that didn't break the bank. The Elementum brought a new era for knife enthusiasts, a high-performance knife that just about anyone could afford.
The late 2010s also brought about one of the most popular knives ever, the Benchmade Bug-Out. Tipping the scales at less than 2 ounces thanks to its partial steel liners and full polymer handle, this knife was the perfect utility knife for everyday carry. It also established a trend we'll see more of in the next decade, of making knives slimmer and more pocketable rather than bigger and overbuilt.
The 2010s were also an era of innovation and collaboration, with engineers and designers putting their heads together to create designs unlike anything we've ever seen before. For example, the CRKT Provoke, designed by Joe Caswell. Instead of opening like a conventional folder, it slides out on 2 metal arms and locks into place with an original mechanism. It's one of the very few folders that can rival the deployment speed of a fixed blade thanks to the out-of-box thinking of a visionary knife maker.
At the time of filming, we are only halfway through the 2020s, but we are still seeing history being made and in some cases repeated in the knife world. Back in the 90s, after an era of lockbacks trying to catch the Buck 110 lightning in a bottle once again, a ton of knife companies put out some of the best locks ever put to knives. And now, a good 25 years later, patents are starting to expire.
When Benchmade's patent on the Axis lock expired, tons of other companies started using the crossbar lock. Most notably is the Kershaw Iridium, known for its smooth ball-bearing action, its full aluminum casing, and more notably, its great price. This isn't the only lock to have entered the public domain this decade, and there are plenty more on the way.
But it's not all people just using locks that have entered the public domain. We've seen a lot of knife innovation as well. The biggest this decade so far has been CPM MagnaCut steel, designed by Dr. Laren Thomas, the knife industry's favorite metallurgist. This steel offers an unprecedented balance of edge retention, corrosion resistance, and toughness, and it has taken the knife world by storm.
Another fascinating trend in the 2020s is the pocket fixed blade. For the rest of history, fixed blades were typically stuck on the belt or stashed in a bag. But now, they easily slip into your pocket like the CRKT Razzle fixed blade. Instead of a belt loop, this comes straight out of the box with a pocket clip. So slide it right in your pocket, and it'll give you the same strength and reliability of a fixed blade, but the convenience of a folder.
So what's next? Well, with advancements in material science, metallurgy, additive manufacturing, and knife design, the future of knives looks incredibly exciting.
From where we sit as one of the biggest retailers in the knife industry, we don't see anyone slowing down. We think that the next 30 years of knives are going to be just as eventful as the last.
Thank you all for joining us on this journey through the last few decades of pocket knives. From the tactical folders of the 90s to the sleek, high-performance tools of today, the knife industry has certainly come a long way.
And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this, and we'll see you next time.